I'm Julie Herman of Jaybird Quilts and Lazy Girl Designs, and today I'm going to share with you the SewTites Quick Hang System. I really wanted to do an unboxing, but then I got excited and I ripped it open and I forgot to film. Thankfully, I did remember to set up the camera in time, so there is a time lapse of me setting it up. You also get a little quick cameo from Nathan and Lawrence. Before I had this system, I had design walls, and when I needed to hang quilts for recording, I would have to pin them to the design walls and use a lot of straight pins. It was not an easy process. They never seemed to want to hang straight because my design walls kind of bow over time. Things would move around, things would fall down. So as soon as they announced this system, I was really excited and slightly impatient, to be honest, because I was like, this is going to solve some problems for me. So it is 4 pieces of metal that get screwed into the wall, and then you can use magnets to hold your quilt up. So you will see that in a minute with the time lapse when I switch over to that, but you can kind of see one up there and they are just behind the quilt, and then it is just hanging nice and flat on my wall and it looks great, and it will be easy for me to switch that out. Let's just jump right on into that time lapse. This is the time lapse of me putting it on the wall. So when you open the package, there are 4 pieces of metal, and depending on how big your wall is and what you'll be hanging will determine if you use them all. I wanted to be able to hang big quilts like the one I showed you in the beginning, which is 96 by 96. So I decided to use all 4. They're each 16 inches. So if you add all that up and you want to make sure your span is 96, it means they need to be each at least about 10.5 to 11 inches apart. So I first used the magnet to find my studs and mark my studs, and used a level to mark my line. And now I am using the pieces to mark out exactly where I want them to be with a 10.5 to 11 inch gap. And this is when Nathan shows up and is asking me what I'm doing, and I'm explaining every step to him. I love how curious he is. So now I'm double checking and talking to my husband, telling him how many screws I think I need into drywall with the anchors versus how many are going to get drilled in. We're picking the right bit to pre-drill the holes. I will say, though, that the anchors didn't end up working great for me. I had much more success going into studs. So thankfully, all 4 of mine have 2 screws into studs, because the anchors, I'm not sure if it's the anchors themselves or if it was my wall, but it just didn't work out so great for me. But it was nice to have Nathan here as my helper. He really wanted to be a part of the process. For those of you who have been following me for a long time, you have seen him when he was super young. I used to post his picture every week. He is now 5.5 years old and super curious, and I love how much he wants to be involved in everything that I do. So I went ahead and pre-drilled the holes for the anchors, and now I was using the mallet to put those anchors in. The process took about 30 minutes for the measuring, the leveling, screwing in of the pieces, and hanging up the first quilt. And it looks like I needed to drill another hole. And it looks like Nathan is playing with the mallet here. I love it. Oh, now here's where the drill battery dies. And thankfully we have 2. So my husband brought me the other one because the one with the low battery was not working to get those into the studs. I will say, for a quilt this big that is 96 by 96, I definitely needed an extra set of hands to put it up, because one magnet is not strong enough to hold the quilt. So I had to kind of have my husband hold some of the excess weight while I got enough magnets on. It hangs perfectly with 8. I think it would have been fine with 6 as well, but I had some extra ones, so it just felt better to use them all. So you'll see here now that I grab my quilt, figure out which side is the top, and start putting the magnets on. I put them on, and I ended up using 2 on each bar, as you can see. And because I wanted my pieces to go into the studs, they ended up a little bit wider apart than planned. So the one all the way on the left is going past the quilt. That might bother you if this is in your home and you don't want those parts seen. But if you're in a quilt shop, that probably isn't a problem. And if you're in a studio like me, also not a problem. And then the last thing you'll see here after I hang the quilt is Nathan and Lawrence are using a tiny little vacuum to clean up the floor, because there's definitely some drywall dust that fell. And just like that, I have an awesome quilt hanging on the wall. I hope you enjoyed that quick time lapse of watching me and my family install this on my wall. I know it's definitely going to get a lot of use here in my studio. Another thing I wanted to mention is that the SewTites that come with it, the gray ones, which are the same size as the large yellow, the package does also include the backs, which is nice so that if it's ever not being used on the wall, you can use your SewTites. And if you're interested in buying this system, you can use my code to save 15%. That code is jaybirdquilts, just one word, jaybirdquilts. I will post a link in the description below and remind you what that code is. The last thing I want to tell you is the quilt behind me. What is it? This is Cuppa Tea. And I am hanging it up because I'm getting ready to film all of the Cuppa Tea videos. Cuppa Tea is my next book. It is a sampler / block of the month, and we are going to have videos to support you every step along the way. I've already recorded a lot of them while I was constructing the sample, but now I have some more to do, and so this is just a much better way to hang this on my wall. Ask for the Quick Hang Magnetic Quilt Hanging System by SewTites and the Cuppa Tea Sampler Quilt Book by Jaybird Quilts at a local quilt shop near you.